Banks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Commands, talk today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. It's another terrific Tuesdays edition, and for a special reason. Want to know why? Well, we shifted our monthly mental health matters for today, just to accommodate you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email Talk Today at candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255. Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon and welcome, and thanks for joining us. And it is a special edition of our monthly mental health matters. We always do it on the first Monday of the month, but sometimes that Monday as well. It's a Monday. You got to change it. So this month, make it happen, man. We're going to be having an opportunity to be joined by another phenomenal panel, always under the great, leadership of Dr. Alexandria Borden over at Encore Cayman. I have been so grateful to you, in all sincerity, because of this monthly program. We have an increasing discussion, not just an awareness and sensitivity, but for people to consciously appreciate the importance of having, someone qualified, competent, confidential that we can talk to, get us the requisite assistance we need. And I think this discussion has helped us to appreciate it, just like with cancers, just like with educational awareness in the academic setting, that the more we know, the more we appreciate the importance of being informed. So as we look at our wonderful panel again, Dr. Borden, first I'll start with you. Interesting topic again as usual. So welcome.
And thank you very much to Radio Cayman for hosting this panel discussion. Every month we try to assemble panels with different experts in the area, and so that you guys get to meet some of the mental health professionals that are working in the field, which I think makes it less scary. But in particular, thank you for allowing us to have these conversations that I think, growing up in Cayman, I can tell you these are things that we didn't talk about when I was growing up. And while it's grown, and the field has grown in leaps and bounds in the last few years, I think that this is a great platform for us to be able to reach all generations and be able to get the messages out there about some general wellness topics like we're covering today, and looking at protective factors and resilience with children's mental health, right down to schizophrenia and bipolar disorder and the different mental illnesses that a lot of us don't really understand.
And that's the thing. I mean, we see how sometimes by talking about something, it's sort of, if you know someone, you may be more inclined to reach out to that person as opposed to a stranger if you're looking for help, for instance. If you know someone, you may be more inclined to be kinder as opposed to immediately hostile. Oh, John, come on in, have a seat. Hopefully the same way, if you know this discussion is being had, potentially the stigma that may attach to it, the scared approach of not knowing who to speak with and what to do, may be removed. But as we get into the discussion, I know that we have three others, two of whom are your colleagues. Perhaps Dr. Liesel, maybe we could start with you first, and then Dr. Cotton. If you are with, and Dr. Whitaker, just quick bio. There was a gentleman we used to have a program with long ago, and Schofield said, I want my people to know that the panel assembled, we didn't just find them in the parking lot. So, in this case, I can't. No,
it would be a great parking lot.
I have a great parking lot. No, this is the panel that we have, and every month we're very grateful. So, Dr. Lisa, maybe with you, just a brief welcome, good afternoon, and as you wish, and a little that you want to share. And likewise, Dr. Cotton.
Yes, so I'm a registered psychologist. I'm from South Africa. There I practiced for 21 years, and I've been 1 year on Cayman and loving it. So, yes. And we're on course. Dr. Jen and I are with Lexi, and yes,
okay.
Dr. Jen.
So, Dr. Cotton, if you would just make sure that mic seems friendly to you, put it as close as you can. Pretend it's a...
So I'm Dr. Jen Cotton. I've been on island 2 months, so not very long. Yes, brand new at On Course Cayman. I came from Washington State in the United States, and there my specialty areas were really eating disorders, which I saw with children and teens due to COVID. So this is a really interesting topic.
Hey, listen, that is important. Dr. Whitaker.
Hi, I'm Dr. Whitaker, Catherine, and I am originally from California. Been on island about 3.5 years. Work for the Department of Counseling Services. The department has 3 different specified departments, but I work with the counseling center. I'm the clinical supervisor there. I also just recently developed a nonprofit for working with actually children, adolescents, and families with trauma with my partner, Shelley Hill. She's my business partner that we developed for because of working here. We've seen the need, so we thought we would do some more research and do some more training in neurofeedback. So it's called Cayman Islands Treatment and Training Institute.
Okay. And this is where I think, Dr. Bond, you've managed to bring from the private sector as well as the public sector. We've always referenced at the beginning and the end of every program the wonderful work at the DCS, you know?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was going to say. We have the Counseling Center represented live and in person. It does exist. It is a real thing, and does very well under the watch of Dr. Whitaker.
Yeah. And all you have to do is call and make an appointment for an intake, and it's that easy. And we have about 8 therapists and 2 interns that see people regularly.
It's
949-8789.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, man. I want people to appreciate that there is a bit of reticence on the part of many of us to seek help for every reason. And we see increasing, this is why I think this much discussion relative to our children. As parents, as coaches, as teachers, as adults, we see children in our care, and we're obviously very, very concerned. But how many times our own behaviors could be affecting it? When we talk about millennials, and I wasn't quite sure what that meant, but they're impacted in so many ways that you would think, wow, you're at this age and you having these sort of issues. What is it? So the idea that they're resilient, but what can we do? So what, Dr. Barnum, as you shared, the role and risk factors, for children, you would think a child should be a child. A child shouldn't be burdened by some of these things in the absence of noticeable, identifiable things, but they're impacted by so much.
Yeah, no, children's mental health is a huge thing, and I think it's really important. I think a lot of times we downplay what children go through, forgetting that their whole world is, is us as the parents or their best friend, or something happens between them and a friend. It means so much to them. And so I think it's really important to understand the child's world from the child's view, but also to be aware of how mental health plays a role in it. We see it in our offices every day. I speak for both, because I'm sure Counseling Center sees the same things that we do, where children struggle with things like relationships, making adjustments to situations. But likewise, we do assessments looking at things like ADHD for children who have difficulties sitting still and focusing in class. Anxiety, especially worrying about tests. Now with COVID, we're seeing huge spikes in anxiety. Worrying about COVID, worrying about what's going on at school, because I know that the schools, it's been like Russian roulette, man, with the schools, just like class by class going down. So there's a lot of variables that they're dealing with now, and uncertainties are hard for any humans, especially the little ones. But likewise, even depression. I know I've talked many times about things like bullying that we see a lot of in the school with that, suicidal ideation, difficulties with understanding gender identity and sexual identity. And there's a lot of things that kids go through. And I'd say even more so now than we did back in the day, because they're not only dealing with the school ground anymore, they're dealing with everything on the internet as well. I can tell you that because every time I have a kid in my office, they teach me something. So something I did not know about social media or the internet.
Right. Well, when we come back from the break, maybe we can talk about that, because these are all interconnected. And in Pearson, as we see it, I recognize that most of the local publications, and perhaps the late Desmond Seals as publisher of the Net News, the one feature that he had that I liked, on the front page, he would focus on we've got, I think, 1 million different nationalities living and working in Cayman. So beautiful place.
1 million, thereabout.
Yeah.
Give or take 1 or 2.
Yeah, last count was 1,001,000, but that one might have left, gone to the back. Oh, Mr. Dolan. And they identified many things, but the one thing was how beautiful it is to live and raise a family in Cayman. And I was looking at it, thanks to many of the articles that you sent. Yet, in this paradise that is that safe place, there's still the same problems that our young people experience, whether they're in California or China, whether they're in New York or somewhere else. So they're not unique to any particular setting. And despite the environmental factors, there are these sort of digital domains that connect us. So maybe after the break we can talk about some of those issues, some of those common difficulties, some of the risk factors, some of the other issues, and speak to the idea of food and nutrition as well, Dr. Cotton. All right, it is our monthly mental health matters. The phone lines are available to you. Susan is all masked up, hair is combed, makeup is all in place. You can call and share your thoughts. 1-800-534-8255. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Savannah Pharmacy. Shop local and get a head start on your Christmas shopping. For ladies' handbags, clothes, shoes, fragrance, candles, and cosmetics with the newest Farmhouse Fresh line of skincare. For the gentlemen, clothes, shoes, fragrances, gift sets, and toys and games for the kids. Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs. And convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
Are you planning a social, an office party, or event over the holiday season? Make the most of your holiday party and leave the catering to Subway. Choose from small and large sandwich platters, double meat wrap platters, and top it off with optional cookie platters for dessert. Or ask about our Subway Box to Go with the option of a 6-inch or foot-long sandwich, 1 cookie, and 1 bag of chips. Cater your holiday parties with Subway. Visit subway.ky for menu options. Subway. Eat fresh.
Freedom, Cayman Brac. Freedom, Little Cayman. Soft breezes, blue waters, no traffic. Unwind and rejuvenate your mind, body, and soul. Sister Island Staycations, a taste of freedom. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
20 years.
Remember when Crew Road had no median and Linford Pearson was only 2 lanes?
We do.
When Dirty Reeds was down the street?
We do.
We have been there for the falls, the growth, and the rise. When your body and mind needed to change, Powerhouse Gym has been here. We've skated with you. Your first date, your daughter's first time on skates, your son's first strike. From football to squash, to karate and hockey, to bowling and concerts, and everything in between.
For 20 years,
so much has changed, some for the good and some not so much. Through it all, King Sports Center has been here for you, for Cayman.
King Sports Center, celebrating 20 years as Cayman's home for fitness, recreation, and relaxation.
Join the Cayman Islands National Museum in celebrating their 31st anniversary.
Cayman old times are back again.
Cassava cake and cold swanky. That's Cayman.
The Cayman Islands National Museum is pleased to host Look Here, Old Time Days Come Back Again, How We Used to Live. Take a break from 2021 and take a step back into yesteryear. Relive our good old times. Saturday, November 20th, from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. We're shutting down Gorin Avenue and Seafarers Way and expect to see all of Cayman there to celebrate. Cayman-style beef, cassava cake, and stew turtle competition in all of our old-time traditions. Platin, rope making, salt fish, making wampas. Bring the kiddos, and don't forget Granny too. Saturday, November 20th, from 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. Now that's Cayman.
Cassava cake and cold swanky. That's Cayman. A chopin, a drink, and a beef patty. That's Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back. And thanks again for joining us on our monthly Mental Health Matters. Dr. Alexandra Borden again assembles a wonderful panel of professionals. Protective factors and resilience in our children's mental health. Joining Dr. Borden, her colleagues at On-Course Cayman, Dr. Liesl Angelova, together with Dr. Jennifer Cotton, and then from the Department of Counseling Services, yes, see, our government's department that ensure mental health are here, Dr. Catherine Whitaker. When we think of it, and we especially look at children, I think everybody would say, oh, don't worry about them, they're so resilient, they'll rebound. Yes, thankfully, God has ordained them in that way that they do. But they're still impacted by much. Are there particular sort of, risk factors that may play in? But I also want to know if there are certain things that are peculiar to children that may come about, especially the younger ones now. Who would like to jump in first, Dr. Borden?
Well, we have risk factors and protective factors, and so the protective factors would be the opposite of risk factors. So if you look at like family factors, you would look at good parenting, which would be a protective factor. You would look at low family stress, and sound parental mental health, and absence of alcoholism, drug use, behavior like that, like gambling addictions and things like that. And then just a sense of general safety for the child within the family. So those would be the protective factors, and if you just take the opposite of those would be, not good parenting styles. Parents that have mental health problems and that, frequent users of alcohol or drugs and brings those into the family, that just kind of, combat the safety of the child within the family.
And I'm asking that specifically because from time to time, and I'm certainly hoping to be better today than I was yesterday. I would hope to even improving tomorrow. Me, not better than anybody else, just better than what I was, the best me. And a number of friends would talk about at-risk youth, and I always found that to be slightly misplaced because, in my mind, all our youth are at risk, right? And then if you look at within the home environment, seemingly it may be a decent home, but there are things where the child or the children may be exposed to. Take alcohol. There's a free liquor cabinet with the top shelf things. What are we doing as parents in our example to say, every meal, do we pour it? Do we water it down as some cultures would do? Do we say, no, that's not for you until you're an adult? And then at age 18, 2 days before the child was 17, and unless you're in some other state where it's 21, or in some countries where it's 16, those factors play in. What are we doing to set the right example, and are we putting our children at risk? So with that, Dr. Liesl, how do we as parents, when we go about our daily lives, there's the stress and the stresses of our careers, of our interaction as partners, and how that may impact our children as well. Even the cutting words, the unforgiveness, the shouting, the absence, even though you mean well, you're so busy. Parent A is taking child to some activity and parent B is taking the other child to someone, and there's none of that family thing. Are those potential things that could in the long term affect the child's health and well-being?
Yes, I definitely think so. If you have a very stressed parent that is not looking after their mental health, so they're becoming, having a mental illness, but they're also, role modeling this for the child. And so research is very strong on the effect of a depressed mother, for instance, on a child, And so if you look at those factors, it just, the safety of the child in the family is compromised.
Yeah, I think too, in most homes you would expect that everybody, hopefully the father, the husband, but the children in particular, to be especially concerned for the mother, not hopefully people misconstrue that the women are weak or whatever, but society is trying to look at. To me, the mother is the heart. The mother is that soul and being of the home.
Yeah, I think the mother is the primary nurturer, you know. So if your primary nurturer is not able to form a close attachment, you know, and be a supportive, supportive, warm, responsive relationship with a child, I think, you know, the attachment goes out, and then the child is kind of alone in this world,
right.
You know, unless of course you have the father picks up, and there might be, you know, alternative family members who are also creating that kind of environment, and those kind of attachments, because the single most common factor in building resiliency is having at least one close parent, you know, relationship that is warm and responsive and supportive, you know, whether it's a parent or a adult caregiver, but it must be, you know, responsive adult caregiver. Right.
Well, Dr. Lisa, from the one of the academic papers that you sent on the research that talked about some of the risk factors and the alcoholism, for instance, or drug use within the parents, but even the parents' own sort of mental wellness can impact. And if one parent is struggling, that could, you know, impact the rest of them. But I wonder to what extent things like a good lifestyle, diet, nutrition, exercise. There was a study, I think, some years ago, well, when I had here, so it was for a long time ago. Dr. Cotton and I saw that indicated that many of the children in the U.S. who were getting supplements were those who were already sort of healthy, could afford it, came from that environment. And the ones that were not getting as frequent access as necessary were from more of a lower socioeconomic. So, you know, the rich get richer, they say. If you got money, go to the bank, you can use the bar. If you don't, they'll lend you. So what role does nutrition play in it, and things like the family's finances impact diet, lifestyle, nutrition, health, and wellness?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, they have a huge impact. But I think not only the ability to get food and to get nutrition, but what do we model for our children with that? Do we talk about dieting? Do we talk about restricting? Do we use that as a form of control, which is what we've seen a lot with COVID, this out of control, then children really look towards food. Like, how do I control my calorie intake? How do I control my exercise? And so all of that plays a big role.
I can imagine too, Dr. Whitaker, from the perspective that picked up on Dr. Cotton's perspective, that control / access sometimes that we may have in this space that we find ourselves. It must be difficult for some children to understand, given the uncertainty as well. What is the protocol today? You know, will that change tomorrow? The anxiety, the eating, and the like.
Yeah, and being out of control as well. You know, because what I've noticed, just being curious, looking at families and on island since I've been here, and I've seen the families that have gotten through like quarantine and gotten through those times have that connection, and all these resiliency factors play a part in that, just connecting with your child, and you can have all the money and no money, but you can still connect. So I noticed even with more money, they might have things. They might have a good diet. They might have too good of a diet. They might get whatever they want, and then they're out of control. And then, you know, but if you have that connection with them, I mean, eye contact, connecting, sitting down and having quality time with your children, that's, I think, the best thing that COVID ever did for all of us, is to realize that families need to be connected and really have that time, because you can have all the resources but not have that. And I think that's what happens with kids going to school, is they don't have those connections. They don't form those bonds because they might not have learned that at home. Right. So those things can play against you and play for you. And it obviously starts in the home, but if you haven't learned that in the home, then they're going to find it somewhere else.
Right. That connection that you speak of, though, I mean, and just using the COVID example, there are many last year, and probably now, because of forced isolation, because of the mandatory nature of things, they use that to read more, to maybe research and to write. Then there were those who were beside themselves. They were in a space with others, parents with parents, parents with children, and they conflict. There was a growing level of conflict, a realization of certain things. You know, 2 years hence, that may manifest itself in many ways.
No, because schools are the front lines for intervening with domestic violence. That was a big concern. I know that was at the outset. While domestic violence increases were reported throughout the world, we didn't have the spike. We didn't have an increase here to start with. But that's because a lot of times it's the teachers and the people at school that pick up on signs of abuse, signs of neglect in the children, which meant that the cases weren't there because they weren't being reported. So once schools are back in, that has picked back up, and that is a concern, right? Because when families are dysfunctional like that, they don't normally turn themselves in. Right. That sounds weird, but they're part of the system, and they often they don't see it as they don't. Because of the nature of the difficulties of a dysfunctional family to that level, if there's abuse or neglect, they're not looking out like that.
It might be a norm for them.
Right. So that because of how the system's evolved, they're not going to be looking out. So that's where having the teachers and other people involved are important. And a lot of kids actually get their food at school. Yeah. So that hit them a couple different ways. I know that Kiwanis had to changed up their program to actually deliver breakfast to the kids because the kids.
So is it then that, and I recognize, I think avoidance is a term within your specialty, but so I don't want to profess to use it in that sense, but to the extent that people who are now confined to spaces may not have engaged necessarily in the level of discussion from the connection. Prior to being forced there, they were able to evade and avoid each other by being active, by being not in the same space at the same time. So we've seen it now.
Busy. Busy working, busy on the internet as well. Like that social media you were talking about, it kind of worked for us and against us because it disconnects, but it also connects. And for us at the Counseling Center, we do way more telehealth now than we did, and that opened up an opportunity for us to see more people. We saw more people in the BRAC during lockdown, and even now we saw more children and adolescents because we were able to connect better thanks to social media and thanks to that. But on the other hand, that's one of the things that also
divides us.
Yeah.
You be in the same space with someone and you don't say anything. You're glued to this.
You're all on your phones, like at the restaurant or.
So how then do we build that connection? And from what you're sharing, how does that translate into the child's mental health and well-being? So that maybe preparing a meal, you use the social media to find a nice recipe, you online shop, you get it delivered, it's so convenient. So we can utilize it if we want to. But it's first the parents, or if it's only one parent, the parent making that deliberate, concerted effort to connect and to talk. Easier said than done, but is that what we do?
They're the adults.
Yeah, I would say the adults have to be the leaders under most circumstances. Sometimes your older children will initiate that, and then the parent has to be really responsive to it. That's the important piece of that.
Yeah, and the parent doesn't have to know everything. Like you were saying, you can actually ask them for help, and that's a connection piece. You can say, hey, I don't know how to do this TikTok thing. What's going on?
Sorry, what's TikTok?
And then you guys could do a little dance together.
But, okay, so when we come back from this schedule break, my taskmaster's right there. Maybe that's one of the challenges that as parents we believe we need to know everything, or we are embarrassed or somehow afraid to ask. We know something's not right, maybe we're struggling, and yet we don't seek the help. And then with that, to what role is it engaging the child, or is it imposing on the child, and it creates that potential negative consequence? Where's that line? Maybe we could talk about it. All right. I always learn something every month, and every day even more. So stay tuned for Talk Today.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine. We may be in Christmas shopping mode, but 'tis the flu season too. Savannah Pharmacy has immune system boosters for the entire family with a range of vitamins and supplements. Their knowledgeable and courteous pharmacists are always available to offer the best advice and products. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
All the world's greatest inventions were initially misunderstood.
What?
Except for KFC's Pizza, a pizza made with all chicken and no crust, tomato sauce and pepperoni, topped off with delicious melted cheese. An invention that is understood from the very first bites. Pizza from KFC. No need to explain. You just need to taste it.
Try Pizza at KFC Shedden Road and KFC Baytown today.
To all of our essential workers who are dedicated to caring for us during COVID-19, please remember that caring for yourself is important too. Use appropriate PPE and practice social distancing whenever possible. Take breaks, take care of yourself, and take care of each other. Remember, we are strong, we are resilient, and we will continue to get through this together. For more information on COVID-19, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks to Miss Susan. She's there if you want to call, ask a question, you want clarification, you're just seeking, validation, edification. Here we're here. For a small fee, we offer it in us. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. So monthly mental health matters. Protective factors and resilience in children's mental health. Dr. Alexandra Borden course came on as a licensed licensed psychologist, right? Clinical. Yeah. Two of our colleagues, Dr. Cotton and Dr. Angelova, joins us together with the head of the Department of Counseling Services, Dr. Whitaker. I think sometimes on a personal level, we sort of make light of things because it may be easier. Maybe it's a way of masking. Maybe it's a way to cope with certain things. But when it comes to our children, whether it's the children we teach, coach, or parent, they're our children. We want the best. And increasingly, as we look at millennials, those younger ones now, they're impacted by so much. We see social media. They can't get away from it. They're drawn to it. It dictates their lives. Mm-hmm. It must be stressful.
Well, especially now with schools moving online, it's even more. We had so many concerns about screen time, but now they're mandated to a lot of it. So it's a different life that they're living now.
Mm-hmm. So with that, then, are there particular difficulties or certain, I don't want to say ailments, but disorders maybe that we would see younger children experience? Are there, certain things that as they go through their early lives when it comes to their mental health and well-being, that are peculiar to the children or are on the increase?
I mean, you'll see earlier things like concerns with attachment, like what Dr. Angelova had referenced earlier. And what we see a lot of is, especially, we do a lot of assessments for the schools for ADHD. And so we still see a significant amount of that. And that is actually now an adult disorder as well. So that's one that you used to only diagnose in children that we can now diagnose in adults. But anxiety, so in the younger ones, we tend to see separation anxiety, which is, it's actually a part of the developmental stages as they're growing up and they realize who mom or dad or whoever the primary caregiver is, and they get nervous being away from them. So that is an evolutionarily adaptive trait with helping them to... It's making weird noises.
Yeah, and
it's whistling while I'm talking.
Yeah.
I'm trying to be cool and use my mindfulness and ignore it.
Unfortunately, Susan's in my hair.
Do you want me to use it a phone?
No, it's all...
Okay.
Try it.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So, But separation anxiety you tend to see younger as well, and so that becomes, so obviously we've talked about how there's like kind of normal levels of like anxiety symptoms that all of us experience, but then there's going to be things like a separation anxiety disorder where it's going to be impairing their ability to go to school or to function, and so that would be some of the things that we'd look for younger. Then as we get a little bit older, actually Alex Panton Foundation is working with the National Drug Council, and so with the student drug use survey that they do every 2 years, that probably all of us that grew up here have probably done, but hopefully most of us as professionals are somewhat familiar with, they've actually added in mental health statistics too, which is showing both levels of anxiety as well as depression, and that was done in the high schools. So I think that what they'd found was about 5% for generalized anxiety, about 5% for social anxiety, and this was within the surveys. They had met the clinical cutoffs for that, and about 4.5% for depression. Generally, it's put it right. So it sounds impressive, concerning.
Yeah.
But generally, that's not too far off from what we would expect.
Yeah. Well, I was acknowledging that as you look at statistics from other jurisdictions that are perhaps more mature, have been more adept at garnering statistics through studies and the like, we're seeing the same things evident here.
Yeah.
With that in mind, sorry.
Well, and I will say, what I think is really interesting is seeing that the younger generations are far better versed in psychology. They talk about anxiety. They talk about depression. They talk about all the things that we don't really, as Caymanians, we don't typically talk about. So they are going to report it more. And so I think that, we always talk about the difference between, did we just have a spike in anxiety and depression in the children? No, it's that we're now assessing it. So now we actually have numbers. But also I think that more of the kids are more readily identifying it as anxiety and as depression, which are words we didn't really use growing up when I was growing up here.
Well, let me then ask that. Influence, I think, sometimes an exposure. If I'm wrong, I think somewhere I read between by age 5 or age 7, the child's brain is almost, developed to its full capacity. So that influence that we have in the early years relative to education, we see the importance of that early intervention. But I wonder the exposure, and then with that, as the child gets, adolescent, now is very cognizant of terminology, and so the reporting from surveys become easier, much more common. To what extent can we, looking at the early, years of the child, and then in today, for instance, the parents who's listening, and their parents, I got a 2-year-old. Let me start to make measures and be more cognizant of what my child's exposed to relative to the media and what I'm introducing the child to. But then the parents say, well, I have a 13-year-old, 15-year-old, a 17-year-old, even a 21-year-old, and I want to be. We can do much with the younger one, but the 15-year-old, are there things we can do to help, to identify, to cope, to ensure that the mental health and well-being? Dr. Cotton, want to weigh in?
Sure. I mean, actually, our brains, our frontal lobe especially, is not fully developed until we're 25 years old.
Right.
And throughout our lifetime, our brain has a lot of neuroplasticity, so it can be influenced, in positive and negative ways. So it's just a matter of what kind of exposure and what you're teaching children at what age. Is it developmentally appropriate for them? That's really the most important piece.
Okay. So with that, and I appreciate your reference in age 25. I mean, maybe that's why the rental cars companies will charge you. But yet we have the age of majority at 18, age of consent for different things, age of being drafted, if there was, the age to drink. There's so many varying ages, yet the mature person who is better equipped, it's conflicting sometimes, challenging.
Yes, I think it is challenging. As we said, when you're 18 and actually your frontal lobe is only fully developed when you're 25, what kind of responsibility and what kind of executive functioning are we expecting of a 18-year-old to take if the availability of these resources, internal resources, are really only at 25.
So let me then ask, I think back to maybe people born in the late 1800s, early 1900s and their success, just generally speaking, from the historical context. And I think to the Caymanian, it's not just the men they went to see, but the women. And I wonder, in today's language, again, guide me please, are we saying to young people, oh, it's not your fault? We let them off easier in some instances when compared to their parents and grandparents who became adults who seemingly gifted with a degree of wisdom and resilience and resolve and tenacity and drive and determination and grit and all the wonderful values and virtues that we describe. To what extent environment and nurturing and almost necessity play into the resilience, the maturity, the quote-unquote success?
Parenting style also plays a role. You know, authoritative parents, and you get authoritative parenting style, authoritarian, and then permissive. So the authoritarian parenting style seems to be the best kind of link to resilience. Authoritarian parents, where they are controlling everything and the child kind of has minimal freedom and responsibility. And then you have the permissive parents that anything kind of goes. So the authoritarian style seems to be best suited in terms of helping your child reach resilience. So that's just in terms of parenting, but there are many community factors such as extended family member engagement, supportive relationships with a mentor, and positive school experiences. And now that the children are not going to school, sometimes their mentors are at school and they are now disconnected from them, so that in terms of COVID would just also be kind of a risk factor. And then if you're living in a safe neighborhood, things like that, if you have advanced social economic status and you can kind of afford more resources, and then also having a strong cultural identity and a pride kind of in who you are.
Who you are, yeah.
Yes. Those are very protective factors.
So maybe we can expound on some of that, because especially in the Cayman context where we have that 1,001 different nationalities, so far, thank God, it's been a nice wonderful blend of people borrowing the recipes, they're blending of families and play and interaction. But then there's also sadly without consequence and even without sometimes significant concern, too many of us failing to appreciate the inherent biases that we bring to the table. So when we come back from the break, we can look at it, see how we can make this space and place that we occupy that much better. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom. Today's biggest news.
At 8 a.m. on Monday, November 8th, Chief Medical Officer Dr. John Lee reported 3,696 PCR tests had been conducted since the last report on Friday, November 5th. The Public Health Department also reported 678 positive tests as of 8 a.m. on Monday since their previous report on Friday. Of these positive results, 9 were in travelers and 669 were from the community. These results brought the number of active cases of COVID-19 in the Cayman Islands as of 8 a.m. Monday to 2,118. Turning to international news now, at least 25 primary school children were killed when their thatched rope classrooms caught fire in southern Niger on Monday, the Council of Ministers said in a statement. 14 more children were injured, including 5 children in a critical condition, the statement said. Classes have been suspended and 3 days of mourning declared. The deaths of 8 people in a crush of fans at a music festival have led to calls for an independent, outside investigation instead of one by the Houston police, who, along with the fire department, played a key role in crowd control and other safety measures at the show. Experts in crowd safety say an investigation by neutral outsiders into the tragedy during Friday night's performance by rapper Travis Scott could help the city avoid potential conflicts of interest and promote transparency. And the Pakistani government and the armed militant group, the Pakistani Taliban, have agreed to a 1-month ceasefire while negotiations get underway to end years of bloodshed. Pakistan's information minister announced Monday a complete ceasefire was agreed with the group known as the TTP, a banned Islamist group that is responsible for some of the deadliest attacks in Pakistan's history. Those are your latest headlines. From Radio Cayman's newsroom, I'm Shanda Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks very much for joining us. A monthly mental health matters show. Dr. Alexandra Boyden, together with two of our colleagues, one course came on, Dr. Liesl Angelova and Dr. Jennifer Cotton, and then the head of the Department of Counseling Services, Dr. Catherine Whitaker. You know, I think when we think of our young people and our children, I don't think there's anybody who isn't inclined to want the very best for them. And maybe at some point, you know, in the distant past, we didn't think children were burdened by stress. We didn't think that, you know, if they got a cut playing, that it wouldn't heal. But now we're seeing increasingly, as we get into sort of parenting styles, reference earlier to report, maybe I can also ask, is it then that our children are increasingly introduced, I don't want to necessarily use the word exposed, but introduced to so much so early, and sometimes uncontrolled, unnurtured environment that their little brains and bodies can't cope and function, and you know they're left to parent themselves. So, Dr. Boyden?
Yeah, no, they're definitely exposed to a lot more, which is where having some understanding, even as Dr. Whitaker said, even if you're asking them to show you, a lot of times they love to show off what they know. So, you know, letting them know you're interested in TikTok, which is one I've not learned yet. I will be asking some child about this week. You know, asking them and engaging them. But really what's going to be most important is that relationship and the communication, because as they get older, they'll be facing more and more difficulties, more and more challenges, and more things they have to understand with and grapple with as they're going through the different developmental stages. So that communication is going to be what's most important. I know you asked that kind of question, well, my kid's 17, there's nothing I can do. But I mean, I specialize with adult survivors of abuse, so that's where things went wrong in childhood. But even in adults, you know, they're still able to make huge changes in their lives. So it's not like you reach a certain age and you're done, right? You know, we can do therapy at any age and any stage, you know, and there's always things that we can do, even if there's nothing wrong, quote unquote wrong. There's always things that we can work to improve and further develop. But and looking at, you know, the role of the parenting style, so thank you, Dr. Angela, for going through that. I just wanted to kind of add to that. So we talked about like the authoritative being this kind of balance of warmth and discipline, the permissive being very warm and not much discipline, and then the authoritarian being very disciplined and heavily structured with not much warmth. Since coming home, I know that's something that I've noticed is that in the Caribbean, we tend more towards the authoritarian style. And so, you know, that's something that, you know, as we have therapists come in from overseas, that's something that we educate them on, because I think that a lot more parents are opening up to the idea. I know that the Family Resource Center does great parent coaching and parenting classes and a lot on positive discipline and that kind of thing, with helping parents to understand other ways and more helpful ways of being able to still have the structure and the respect without having to do it through fear. And I think that's really important, because when they get older, you know, you need that connection to have them come to you to talk about what's going on. When they're dealing with things like dating, when, you know, drugs, alcohol, all the terrible things that come up in the teens, exciting but difficult things that come up. I'm now a mom, so to me they're terrible right now.
I have a lot to look forward to.
All the exciting things that come up, we want that bond. I think that's really important. So, you know, so culturally, I think Cayman is growing and learning, especially from the influence of the expatriates, to understand that, you know, it is possible to have a respectful child, but also still have that warm connection too. And
I appreciate you referencing the cultural nuances.
And there's still love as well.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's from the people I've worked with that have come in from overseas, it looks like there's no love. It looks just very harsh. And that's not the case. There is love there. We just show it a bit differently. Yeah. It's shown differently. Yeah. And so, you know, especially a lot of the adults I work with, a lot of it is reconceptualizing. You know, it'd be great if they said, I love you, and they hugged you, but they might be showing it differently, especially the older, like the Caymanian, the West Indian men. Yeah. You know, a lot of times it was just providing.
It was,
you know, it was giving the money when you're home from the ship, you know, that kind of stuff. So, you know, so it's sometimes reconceptualizing this idea of love and knowing we can do it differently with our kids, and that's okay, but helping them to understand the whole picture.
Right. I appreciate emphasizing that, because I think culturally sometimes we don't always appreciate looking from the outside, you know, what we see, but even from the inside looking out, you know, what is it and that stoic, almost emotionless parent who isn't overly affectionate, that it doesn't mean there's any less love or that sense of discipline. Someone sent me something the other day where they said, the piece written, I have the most horrible parents, they force me to, break the child labor laws by having to do chores. Really punished us because we had to eat. We couldn't get, candy and all the sugar for breakfast when we wanted, and we had to go play,
Outside.
What? I mean, what were they thinking? Put us out in the sun. I mean, But when we look at it in context, we understand what it is, right? And maybe to some extent, even the parents, Caymanian parents of today, might say, well, my parents did this, and I don't want to do that for my child. Not realizing what it has meant for that parent today, being the resilient, independent thinking, go-getter, as it were. So balancing.
Yeah, because the independent time is important as well for developing autonomy and self-confidence and exploring things as well. So that's where, I think sometimes we've almost gone too far the other way. We try to overprotect children, right? And I have one now. I completely understand that. No matter what I do, he bumps his head, and because he's learning to walk. So it is finding a balance, and it's going to be different for every parent, every child, and every situation.
So from that perspective, then you talked about new reference earlier that it's never too late to seek professional help. It doesn't mean that something is wrong. It's just that you want to, to be better. I referenced earlier, my own endeavors. But I'm mindful. What does it say? A little learning is a dangerous thing. Just because you read something, you think you understand it, you don't. You try to apply it. So having a resource, and we have a really wonderful resource that we can talk, competently, confidentially. They have the professionalism. But for that parent or for the adult, parents, teachers, coaches, we all do professional development to improve. But in the nurturing, Dr. Lisa, sometimes we need to seek that help in order to help us identify, respond, and be able to continue to nurture our children at 5 or 15.
And I think when there are difficulties in teens, when there are like delinquent behaviors, right? When kids start acting out, I think a lot of times that it makes it even harder to feel close, and parents get frustrated, teachers get frustrated. And that's where I think, really taking time to understand where those kinds of behaviors is coming from is helpful with building that bond, with understanding that when kids do those kinds of things, it's not generally because they're bad kids, which is how it feels in the moment. You're frustrated with them because why do they keep doing that? But to understand that those kinds of behaviors are generally coming from some kind of place of hurting, and understanding that, right? So the idea is that kind of when we do things outwardly, getting into drinking and drugs, running, kind of staying out late at night, getting with the negative influence peers. A lot of times they're searching for something or dealing with something, and so understanding that they're not bad kids. They're kids that are hurting and struggling with something and need even more care. I think it's an important piece as well.
And even in little children don't have the emotional vocabulary or the skills or the maturity to say, I'm anxious or I'm feeling depressed. So they'll kick the dog and slam the door and, fall on the floor. That's not necessarily a bad child. That's saying, I have to show you in my behavior that I'm not okay because I can't say it in words.
So then, that's probably a point for some of us as parents, especially if we have friends, family nearby. We feel embarrassed, so we respond in a way that we think is appropriate. I'll show you who's boss, little Johnny.
Yes.
And we do that, right? Only to regret it. What the scripture says, never discipline in anger, but we don't do that. So maybe as the adult, as a parent, sometimes our own self-development needs to take precedence in order to be able to parent, to recognize these things.
You're not a bad parent, you're just making some bad choices at the moment.
Thanks for validating me.
You're just using the tools you have. That's all you have.
I used to think, because I don't have children of my own, but I was a nanny before, and I would be like, why are you having that 1-year-old birthday party? This kid's never going to remember. And all these years later, I think dear God, celebrate that. You kept that kid alive for a year. This party is for you. Parents, we can read every book. You can have, great models, but you are just doing the best you can.
Mm-hmm.
And with a partner and just trying to get along with the partner when the kid's in the house and, just raising that child and trying to keep them alive, first of all, and then also just trying to keep yourself sane. It's really difficult, especially in a time we forget we are in a pandemic, and parents need to just laugh more and connect more and just not take yourself so seriously, but also enjoy your life. And that's the part of you were saying before, being embarrassed or being, for TikTok or not. We just need to, I say free myself from myself.
Yeah. Stop taking ourselves too seriously.
Yeah.
But then is that part of the challenge then? I'm thinking, thanks too for Dr. Barbara Telly. I always like to read, and she sends me stuff, and that leads to some other stuff. And at the end of the day, I come by going, I know one thing. I don't know what I don't know. That's the one thing I know.
Exactly.
But as parents, and even in the Cayman context, where you may have someone who is from Cayman, of a long lineage of, multiculturalism, meeting and marrying and having family with someone else from just as long from another place, and you bring in various lifestyles and expectations and different nuances into even how you prepare certain food. No, you add the pepper after, not before. You put the pepper in first. That is So all those things come into play. If I may ask then, as parents, if our differences are being magnified, if we're unsure how to respond, if we don't approach with the same sort of on the same page, laughing. You may laugh with the child as one parent, and the other one will say, no, you don't laugh. That's condoning that behavior. What you do is this thing, You might say, come on, let's go bake some cookies so we can talk about it. You're not rewarding the child with something sweet. What's wrong with you? Dr. Lisa?
I think all parents have differences in parenting styles, So I think it comes down to the parents sitting down with each other and discussing, kind of how are we going to parent, what is important to us, making kind of parental, if you can call it parental rules or parental guidelines, so that both parents know what are they going to refer to and what works best for their child. Sometimes we think of all these wonderful things we're going to do, but then it doesn't work for your child. So also just taking into consideration all children are different. So all children need kind of different kind of guidance and exposure to things, and you can have two children coming from the same family and needing almost totally different styles. I have twins, and that was a challenge. Oh my gosh, like night and day.
That's so amazing.
But that's
I got them to 21.
Yeah.
When you said getting them to a year, I said, well, I was there. I really felt like that. I didn't know I was going to get them to 6 months.
I'm telling you, I
know they're 21. So
every parent.
Yeah.
Well, I'll share with you what I've just been reminded of. I just said that thank God I know some parents who have children who are, the children are in their 60s, and those parents still worry about their child.
Yes.
And I won't embarrass him by calling his name George. I'm just kidding. But a friend of mine, we're having a meal, and his mother calls, and she's calling to check on him. And he's thinking, I'm not 4 anymore. I wish I was, but he's close to 104. So, as a parent, you never stop loving and caring and wanting to do the best. So maybe when we come back from this final break, could we speak to some of those issues and maybe talk about, to parents in particular, getting assistance in how to be a better parent, recognizing the challenges, the nuances, all of the sort of the things that our children are facing, irrespective of their age, is a good thing. It's good to ask for help, and maybe talk more about that role of therapy and counseling and the support services that are available. All right, I'm going to pause and take this break, and after 1:30, Susan's going to sing. We're going to make sure that happens. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette, brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Henry Watson Ruddy, ISO 1870 to 1943.
Henry Watson Ruddy came to Caymanbrac as a young man with his father, William H. Ruddy, who was the first Baptist missionary to Caymanbrac and started the Baptist mission there. Dr. Henry Ruddy was born and educated in Jamaica and came to Caymanbrac as a young man. He was one of the first civil servants in the Sister Islands, holding the post of Collector of Customs. He was also the only medical dispenser on Caymanbrac which had no doctor. He mixed and dispensed medicines and also did minor surgeries, saving numerous lives. At times, he assisted his wife, Julia Ann Nee Lazari, a midwife who delivered nearly all the babies born on the Brac during Dr. Ruddy's term of service. He was also a school teacher and a preacher. On his retirement, his son Aston took over his government responsibilities.
Radio Cayman is pleased to feature this special Sister Islands historical vignette brought to you by the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your Sister Islands.
Wouldn't it have been grand if you had purchased land 30 years ago? It may not be 2020, but a perfect vision has never been more clear. Caymanbrac and Little Cayman, poised for growth with an eye on the future. Your land, your history, your future. Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
The Department of Environmental Health would like to advise Georgetown residents to get their bulk waste ready for collection from November 8th to the 13th. Household appliances, furniture and other items too large to be handled by the weekly DEH collection crews should be placed by the roadside where it is easily accessible to DEH collection crews. Metals and vegetation should also be separated from other bulk items. Do not obstruct the roadway or storm drains, or place tires, construction and demolition waste, hazardous materials or electronics. For more information on the Georgetown bulk waste collection from November 8th to the 13th, please contact DEH's Solid Waste Management Section at 9049-6696.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. See how fun therapy can be? I told you, therapists are not like accountants. They laugh. Ooh, he's going to pay for that later. Anyway. I honestly, I'm very, very grateful to this monthly discussion, and I'm hopeful that more of us, including myself, will see the importance of not just reading something and trying to self-develop, but to utilizing the resources that we have available. It's a testament, a great investment on the part of our government that we've our Department of Counseling Services, but then all the professionals who come and work here. It shows that we have great access that is akin to the larger metropolitan areas. So I don't want anyone to make light of it and never feel ashamed, embarrassed, as if something's wrong with us. If I'm wrong in saying this, maybe it's wrong if we don't go to get that professional, competent, confidential sort of session to help us along.
And if you don't know if there's something wrong, go and find out. Then you can also just find out that, well, maybe you're just not coping well. Maybe you just need a few coping skills. Maybe you just need to learn how to emotionally regulate. Don't have to engage into 5 years or 10 years of psycho, dynamic therapy. It can be, short-term goals, short-term goals.
I would make a joke as I read, but I'll leave it at that. My friend said she went to a therapist and said, I need you, to come twice a week for the next 15 years. And he said, why? He said, well, I have to pay off my college education.
That's illegal. It should be reported to CPS.
I say I will attempt to make a joke. Thank you all for laughing. But it's important that we do that.
Well, that's true, because, I mean, as a therapist, it's also our job to decide if someone even needs therapy.
Yeah.
Yes. So, you know, I think there's always things you can work on, and even if we say you don't need it, if it's something you think would be helpful just to have, because, you know, in Cayman, everyone knows everyone, right? Everyone's so interconnected, and so it can be nice to have someone who's, you know, who's not involved, who's not family or a friend, who's there for you to help you think things through, and your business isn't going to be shared on the street.
Right.
The confidentiality is the key part there, you know, with making us different from having a chat with a friend.
But I think, as Dr. Lisa, you shared then too, many people don't appreciate that sometimes we use the word coping strategies, but there are little things that are bugging us, and we need to figure out how to self-regulate, how to respond. For some, they maybe think they're doing it very healthy. They put in an extra hour, you know, on the punching bag or in the gym somewhere, that they may decide to work extra hard at work, you know, to get the project finished, you know, a week early, for instance, but they may be barking at friends and family. They may be distancing themselves from friends and family. They may not necessarily be, you know, abusing a particular drug like alcohol. But for today, you know what? They sat quietly and had, you know, one extra drink in their minds. I mean, all sorts of things that come into play because they're not getting, you know, that space in place.
Absolutely.
Even chocolate, that can happen. So you came
Yes, there it is.
But with that, I mean, as parents in particular, as we listen, and the millennials even now, recognizing the challenge, what do we do? Are there things that we should recognize within ourselves that may be transpiring, maybe we're conscious of but not doing something? Are there little things that we should look for?
Yeah, well, I think especially with kids, what Dr. Angelova had referenced with like the kind of the hidden symptoms, right? Because she talks about like the externalizing, as did I, but it can also, it might be small things. It might be stomach aches. It might be feeling more tired. It might be not being able to sleep at night. Nervous about going to school. Changes in appetite. Changes in their ability to focus. If you know your kids, you'll notice a difference. You know, and anything like that is worth checking out. It might be a medical problem, or it might be a mental health problem. You know, it might not actually be a problem. It might just be something kind of transient that's going on. But seeking support, there's no wrong way to start. You know,
and never too late.
Never too late to start, and no wrong way to start. We're blessed that in the schools in Cayman, most of them have a school counselor. Many have a psychologist as well. You know, so there's someone readily available for the kids who's there at the site of the school, which is helpful. But we've got government services provided through the Counseling Center and Department of Counseling Services, through Family Resource Center, lots of private practices where we have all levels and all different specialties. I think Cayman is very blessed to have such a range of specialties on island for such a small population. But even your pediatrician, right? Pediatrician, your GP, your pastor, there's a lot of different people you can talk to if you have questions or concerns about what's going on.
Right. And as we sort of close our discussion, perhaps on Dr. Cotton, we'll start with you first. But I think many times we don't necessarily look at how our diet, our nutrition, our exercise, our lifestyle impacts us. As I was saying, I was thinking earlier to a parent who shared once that because of an active, engaged, sort of involved parent, realized that certain foods were affecting the child, and immediately think, oh, sugar. Well, no, maybe it's the diet, but it's the sugar. But other things, now, you know, empty vessels make the most noise, they say. You know, that's why we feed the politicians early. But she's like, that's 3. Isn't it? But if that child isn't, so nutrition and the like, and how it impacts. But as you share your closing thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we don't understand is that nutrition really impacts our neurochemistry. So oftentimes we think about like an antidepressant giving us more serotonin. Well, actually carbohydrates give us that as well, you know, and dopamine for focus. Protein gives us that as well. And then there are things like alcohol and caffeine that deplete some of those things. So they can then increase depression, anxiety, rumination, things like that.
Okay. Again, food, you know, if your food isn't, you know, your medicine becomes your food, in a sense.
Yeah, food is really important in regulating ourselves.
Huh.
Or, for example, if children are missing breakfast before they go to school, well, if you miss one meal, you've already reduced your serotonin levels. So when our serotonin levels are lower, we start to get anxious. We start to think about things over and over and over and over again. And the more meals we miss, the worse that gets.
So that idea of straight skip a meal, I mean, even as adults, is unwise, unhealthy.
Yes, yes.
Huh.
So, and then our body actually compensates by releasing adrenaline, which makes us more anxious. And then for women or teen girls, it then impacts your hormones. And now you have this whole chemical cycle going on that's impacted your mental health that, you know, then it takes maybe 24 hours to re-regulate if you're eating regularly, if you're regulating your blood sugar.
Right. So maybe a public invitation to have you join us again, because I think we don't appreciate how much food affects us. But as you said, adrenaline, I'm thinking potentially adrenaline fatigue syndrome could kick in.
Yes.
As opposed to Addison's disease in a sense, right? But we ignore that, and then all of a sudden you're overtaxing another part of you, and that downward spiral impact. Future discussion, Dr. Borden, for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Making notes.
Always looking for good content.
For me. It's a future discussion for here, but therapy for me.
Do you do group sessions?
Definitely.
I think we don't look at food and nutrition sufficiently.
Yeah.
And I think back to older Caymanians where they went in the ground and they got the fresh produce, right? They got the ground provisions. And they live to be 150 years old. You know, still making children in boats. Or making children in boats. Sorry, Dr. Whittaker. West Bears and North we don't. Alright. So, Dr. Lisa, maybe some closing thoughts from you then.
I think it's just it would be great if we could be building more protective factors and minimizing the risk factors, and just be aware of what are the protective factors and what are the risk factors in your family, in your child as individual, in yourself, and trying to just get a balance there. And
Excellent. Dr.
I have a few phone numbers for you. I have the mental health helpline for adults. It's 1-800-534-6463, and that you can call any time during the week, 9 to 5. But if you call after hours, it goes to an email, and we can call you back as well. There's also the kids helpline. So if your kids are having some issues and they need to talk to somebody, that's 649-KIDS. That's 649-5437, and that's open usually daily
during the week. Yeah.
During the week, and if you call that, someone should answer that as well. Also, FRC is Family Resource Center. Their number for parenting is 949-0006. That's 949-0006, and that's they have a lot of parenting classes, courses, webinars. They also have a website too. And then, of course, the Counseling Center, 949-8789. It's a mess up my own phone number. 949-8789, and that's if you need mental health. We do family, individual, couple therapy as well.
All right. Dr. Warden?
Yeah, and free of charge.
Yeah,
everything that Dr. Whittaker just shared is free of charge and available to the community. And I think it's amazing the resources that we have here, with many more, being developed as well. So I'm going to add to that. And actually, I will say I've had a few clients and a few friends and family members that have gone to FRC parenting coaching, parenting classes, and I've found them really helpful. Actually, what I think is really cool is the co-parenting classes. If you've recently gone through a divorce, they actually have 2 separate tracks. So if it's been particularly difficult, you can have one go on one track and one on the other as you're learning the shared material. So I thought that was a really cool feature. So in addition, we talked about the resources within the schools. There's the crisis center that will take mental health calls if there are any concerns 24/7, 943-2422. And so that is 943-CICC. And there's also the Alex Panton Foundation has support groups. So there's an online support group for teens that runs every other week. And there's an in-person group that runs for 18 to 30-year-olds every weekend somewhere in town. We're currently shifting locations, I believe, but please check the Alex Panton Foundation website, Facebook page, or Instagram for updates on that. So, but there's no wrong way to start. You know, it's never too late. All of us love our kids, and it's, you know, if there's things out there and resources that are there to help, it's worth learning about them, right? For online and for in person at IRL.
Thank you all very, very much. This is a discussion that we should have every day, and certainly on the show, maybe next year we'll extend it even longer, Dr. Bond. We'll see how it goes.
Fine by me. I enjoy it.
Yeah, it is very helpful. So the resources will be on drbond.com website. So don't not in any which way deny yourself access to the resources that are available.
The Tire Lounge was the other one. I knew there was another one. And that's done through Crisis Center as well, and that's available for 15 to 19-year-olds, I believe, every afternoon at the Stella's place on Eastern Avenue.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Trinity Square, Crown Plaza? Crown Square, yeah. Used to be Trinity.
Yeah, in Crown Square, yeah.
Yep, that's it.
Yeah, Taya Lounge. Look it up. Any kids that are listening or parents are listening, the Taya Lounge, TAYA, Teen and Young Adults Lounge.
There you go. All right, well, thank you each collectively so much, and hopefully we have more discussions on. All right, to our listeners, you know, I asked and she didn't acquiesce, but I will pressure, see if she consents. Susan will sing a song for the next segment. Let's see. I don't know. I'll ask her again. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Savannah Pharmacy. Shop local and get a head start on your Christmas shopping. For ladies' handbags, clothes, shoes, fragrance, candles, and cosmetics with the newest Farmhouse Fresh line of skincare. For the gentlemen, clothes, shoes, fragrances, gift sets, and toys and games for the kids. Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs. And convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
At Subway, we caramel a lot about our customers, so we decided to give you 2 treats in one with the new Caramel Apple Cookie. Enjoy cinnamon apples, caramel bits, and salted caramel crunch baked in, and topped with a drizzle of caramel-flavored icing. Gooey, crunchy, and yummy. Complete your Subway sandwich, pizza, or salad with the delicious Caramel Apple Cookie or any other cookie flavor and dessert, available for a limited time at all Subway locations. Subway, eat fresh.
To those affected by a hurricane, the damage is far greater than the eye can see. It's the helplessness and uncertainty you feel when you have no electricity or running water. It's the pain of experiencing damage to your home. But there are people right here that can help. We're CG Britke. We're your neighbors. We live here and work here too. We're always ready to answer calls and to process your claims as quickly as possible. So when a storm turns your life upside down, we're here to turn it around. CG Britke. Good like that.
Your Radio Cayman 6 p.m. news, Monday through Friday, is brought to you by Logic. Your life connected. Radio Cayman, your #1 community station, would like to remind you that we are in the hurricane season, and in order to survive a hurricane, you need to be prepared. If officials' sources say a hurricane is imminent, please board up or shutter up windows in your home or place of business. Remember to use good lumber, as makeshift boarding may actually cause more damage. Also put strong bracing on outside doors so that they are not blown off or blown in.
This hurricane advice was brought to you by Radio Cayman, your caring community radio station.
Get your running shoes on, ruffle your tail feathers, and prepare to work off that extra helping of turkey dinner while giving back in a big way this Thanksgiving season. Registration is now open for the 6th annual Meals on Wheels 5K Turkey Trot fundraising run walk. Whether you run, jog, walk, waddle, or trot, come get active with us on Saturday, November 20th, starting and ending at Grand Ole House, South Church Street. Registration is open to all ages. Join our sponsors: Davenport Development, McAlpine, Grand Ole House, Western Resort, Progressive Distributors, Cafe Del Sol, and Radio Cayman as they support Meals on Wheels in the fight to end senior hunger in the Cayman Islands. Register today online at www.mealsonwheels.ky or call 769-1974 for more information. See you at the start line.
Explore your history. Explore your land. Explore your sister islands, the ultimate staycation experience. Your culture, your freedom, the land that time forgot isn't gone. It's your sister islands.
Discover all that our sister islands have to offer.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab.
For a full range of medical services, pleasant, clean and comfortable environment, no long lines and affordable fees, visit MedLab at the Smith Road Plaza. Open Monday to Friday, 8:30 a.m. to 5 p.m. and half day on Saturdays. Call 949-7331 to make your appointment.
For medical lab services in Cayman, MedLab.
Ask our professional team about the benefits of cutting-edge technology with MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
You can now register online to receive a securely verified digital copy of your COVID-19 vaccination status with QR code through the MyHSA patient portal. Sign up is available online and at all HSA locations. All you need is your photo ID showing date of birth and an email address. Visit hsa.ky and click the My HSA patient portal icon to get started.
Here's where you can get your Rotary Central Music Extravaganza tickets to win $40,000 and more. Rotary members, authorized ticket sellers, eventpro.ky, A.L. Thompson's Home Depot, Funky Tanks, Rubis, Walkers Road. Here is where your support for Rotary Central Music Extravaganza works for our community. $50,000 committed to Loud Silent Voices, a mental health service, a Rotary Central signature project. The Lightning Cleanup Brigade at the Botanical Park after Tropical Storm Grace. $5,000 in support for the Cayman Islands Crisis Center. Support for the Bridge Foundation Halfway House. Supporting bicycles for the needy. Supporting the Cayman Islands National Disaster Fund. Rotary Music Extravaganza community service at its best. Funding over 70 projects since 1995. Rotary Central, Cayman Islands, registered not-for-profit number 232. Rotary Central, serve to change lives.
89.9 Radio Cayman helps you to weather the storm during this hurricane season.
One of the most crucial elements of hurricane preparedness is storm awareness. During the season, it is of utmost importance to pay attention to the latest local weather forecasts, as hurricanes do not suddenly form or strike. There are various methods of advance notification. Utilizing such may be the difference between a favorable outcome and disaster. Both television and radio serve as excellent mediums with up-to-the-minute storm path information in the wake of a hurricane. Another method of tracking a hurricane may be only arm's length away. Your smartphone or tablet can be your most valuable tool before, during, and after a storm, providing countless numbers of apps with crucial hurricane information. Many apps allow you to track storms with moving radar and satellite imagery, plus offer alerts, current conditions, forecasts, advisories, and even video.
This hurricane preparedness tip was brought to you by your community radio station, Radio Cayman, 89.9 FM.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. It's going to be some open line now. And as we just had our monthly mental health matters show, very grateful to Dr. Alexandra Borden over at OnCourse Cayman, together with our colleagues, Dr. Cotton and Dr. Angelova, and of course the head over at the Department of Counseling Services, Dr. Whitaker. Please, be mindful that seeking help is, in my mind anyway, a sense of strength. Certainly makes good sense to get people to help us who can help us. So if you're trying to jumpstart your car and you don't have jumpers, you ask someone who does and they help you. Maybe you have jumpers but you're not quite sure how to connect them. But even if you did, do you not need another vehicle to connect to? Or maybe it's the old days of the standard shift and you're pushing it. Well, someone can push it. Who's going to pump the clutch? Well, share with us now as we have open line. It feels like many of us that today is Friday, almost as if it's the end of the century. Well, it's just 2021, and when we look at the calendar as ordained and designed by man, because if it was a woman it would have been done better. It tells us that the hurricane season, as Ms. Susan reminds us, draws to a close at the end of this month. But think back, to long before 2020, 2004 and 5, it extended into January. I don't know what they call extratropical or whatever, but weather systems that impacted people in places in very perilous times extended into January. And we've seen some seasons, and even now, they don't start June the 1st. They're starting earlier. So it reminds us of two things. You may think we know what we're doing, what the steps of man, So man orders his steps, but God ordains his purpose. Well, what's on your mind? You want to talk about climate and the weather? Well, I can listen. If you want to talk about the impact of how we live our lives on each other and on others and on our environment, well, let's do that. We saw that much has been shared at the last sort of get together, for want of a better word, the Conference of Parties. I don't know how much partying they did in Scotland just the other day. Certainly the Prime Minister from Barbados gave what many, at least in the Caribbean, thought was probably the most persuasive and impressive contribution. But then it comes back to individually, not only our impact on the environment, but the impact on each other. And of course, we got Christmas coming up, and much to be, thankful, much to celebrate, and much to, for some of us, to, in a sense, feel apprehensive. Now, how do we balance that? Well, we'll have a monthly show next month on our mental health matters to talk about the holiday stresses and the stresses. But let's be, as we say, speak it into being. If the positive mind, what are we hoping and praying and wishing for? Not too early to think about it. Not just the gifts that we'll give and hope to receive, but about the things that we want to impact others. The impact thus far. I know a lot are unwilling sometimes in this sort of forum to critique, whether it's the practice and behavior, the failures and shortcomings of governments, as well as perhaps private sector entities. But if we're going to move forward, if we're going to be able to invite others to discussion, maybe we need to share it. Case in point, today is only Tuesday, and although I was off yesterday, and I appreciate Mr. Art for hosting, part of my discussion yesterday with someone was this whole issue of the economic consequences of what this global phenomenon is inflicting on individuals, on large corporate entities, on the government coffers, the amount of money that governments have to spend, the way they have to allocate their resources, and not just the money that they're borrowing, but also, maybe to a good extent, the personnel that they're redeploying, the need to hire additional resources, to acquire more funding, to pay for some of the things that are becoming necessary, but also the growing, sort of speculation and inquiry, the growing concern by, respected entities like Transparency International, for instance, relative to how government contracts are being awarded. If you look, for instance, in the UK, in this media in recent times, billions and billions of dollars in contracts being awarded without going through the requisite checks and balances of the competitive bidding process. And yet, the government is saying, well, it's a time of emergency and urgency, and we need to sort of fast track these things. Not that anything that was done that wasn't appropriate, but maybe it was. And when the Commissioner's office over there investigates or their audit functions are performed, maybe in hindsight they might see, well, yes, this was suspect or this wasn't, but boy, certainly, could potentially be seen as such. Now, for different reasons, we obviously need to be mindful that when there is an emergency, there needs to be a level of responsiveness that isn't betrayed by bureaucracy, but there also needs to be a sense of responsibility that isn't betrayed by sheer greed and the like. Now, that's in the UK, as established a democracy as any. What about in other jurisdictions, even our own? Your thoughts, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp, 925-3261. And as we look at our own, government, this one, the next one, the one before, the one after, what about the country's ability to financially continue to weather, all that we're facing, to be able to responsibly serve the needs of a growing community, to appreciate that many may find itself in some state or the other needing some level of assistance. And how do we provide? Well, thankfully, there are growing entities. We see Resilience Cayman, for instance, in the month of November, offering up assistance for those who need it. Check out the website, resilience.ky, to see whether or not you can benefit from their recent, very generous donation from R3 of $500,000. Sounds like a lot, but when there are many in need, probably doesn't go as far. But having a little help when you need it, certainly helpful. What's on your mind? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. And then speaking relative to the whole idea of the environment and the impact, one individual was saying, if you look at the Cayman context, surely we can and should be doing more to recognize that there is a growing threat to our environment. We're seeing from just the vehicles, not just the increasing numbers that are on the roads, but the vehicles themselves spewing noxious fumes. A fellow sent me a video of a few cars just ahead of him from his dash cam, from the big truck to the small little car, just spewing along to what he thought was some sort of gas-powered bicycle-like thing, not the electric one. And they're all spluttering, making offensive noises to his ears, as he puts it. But the little fumes, very evident, being emitted from their exhaust. Now, may not be that significant, but has it impacted our air quality? To the whole issue of how do we inspect, and are we being conscious that by ignoring certain things, or we are in fact not in an insignificant way impacting our own air quality, our own environmental sort of protection, and potentially, as he shared, making future generations look at us less favorably. So, issues to consider, and what's on your mind? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261, and share your thoughts with us as you wish. As many have relayed recently, the whole issue relative to beach accesses, the actual coastline. Fellow said that just immediately following the last weather system that came by, he had a chance again to look at the coastline, concentrating mainly, from Southwest Point to Northwest Point, so all along the west side, as it were. And he said, if you look at it, is there something that we have done when we were developing? Whether it's the location of the buildings to the water's edge, whether it's the construction of jetties and seawalls and other structures. And then he shared, will removing them be the answer? And if we're removing them, including buildings, as some have suggested, who will pay for that? How do we compensate for that? But if we don't acknowledge it and try to address and alleviate some of the seemingly obvious consequences that are negatively affecting the shoreline, well, we'll all pay for it, and then who's going to be accountable for that? Well, your thoughts. Are there issues that need addressing that we're ignoring? Are we hoping that if we kick the can further down the road that it'll be someone else's problem, and by then there may be a solution that can be more easily and economically, sort of put in place? Or by then there might be no need for it anymore because, well, climate change may have had its toll. Many like to wait and see, as a friend reminds me, and others are very proactive. And sometimes there is that wise perspective to wait, see what happens, and then respond. You get a very, very offensive email. Do you respond right then? Or do you take time to cool off? You get, for many, the response from someone, and you respond in kind, only to make a bad situation that much worse. But then there are times when things stand right before you, and it's just been ignored a day in and day out. At what point do we consider appropriate action? 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255, 1-800-534-8255, or WhatsApp 925-3261 and share your thoughts with us. As we're looking early at some comments that have been shared relative to the pace of development. And one stood out from the lady who said that if we go to our sister islands, are we looking at some of the things that were done on Grand Cayman that we're now complaining about, that have been sort of the norm for decades? Or are we considering that if we don't make better choices for the sister islands, will be the same negative complaints down the road? Hey, let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Dwayne. Good afternoon to all our listeners. How you doing?
Hey, good afternoon, Mr. Raymond. How are you today, sir?
Yes, sir. Well, it's my birthday today.
I see now. I said earlier that Susan would sing, and I wonder if Susan would join me in singing happy birthday to you. And Anita's right there. We can make another meme. I think you should be especially blessed on your birthday. So I'll wish you a very, very blessed happy birthday, sir.
Yes, thank you, Dwayne.
All right. You think we can get... Yeah, man. Do you think we get Susan to join me in singing happy birthday to you? Come on, Susie. Come on, let's do it. You're a bracket, Susie. Let's go.
I can't sing, you know that.
You can't sing, but you sing better than me. She can do it. She has a voice like an angel. I mean, it might be angel from hell, but still an angel. Let's sing, Susan. Ready? Okay. Is the delay on? So we do it together? All right, ready? On 3. 1, 1.25, 1. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Let's go. Ready? Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Come on. Happy birthday, Mr. Raymond. Make him a brag celebrate all day long. Happy birthday to you, Mr. Raymond.
Mr. Raymond.
Really appreciate that.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Anyway, I'm at home here, just back there, taking it easy. I worked so hard yesterday up until late yesterday.
Yeah, man. Well, that's good for you, man. Because I got a friend who says he plans to work hard tomorrow, but he hasn't seen it that day yet. So you work hard every day, and maybe today, as everyone should, it should be a national holiday for you.
Yes, sir. And a lot of worried and frustrated people about the situation on our island here. Like I told people that we're playing with fire when we had the travelers keep on coming. Keep on until we actually got seated up with it ourselves, the island here in Cayman Islands. And what a situation we're faced with. And like you said, yes, money for the government to do all these kind of things and assist. And what will be the outcome? I was hearing the last figure for Cayman Brac. They said it was a total of 86 was tested positive. What you heard about the figure for here?
I haven't, sir. What I did hear from a number of people is that, how well, let me leave that be for now, because I think many of us are not in the space to be able to objectively and rationally discuss things without being so emotive. So let's hear from you. With that number of people now, what does that do for your mind? I mean, how does that make you feel?
Feels very bad to know that people are contracting this and it's spreading throughout the island. That's because especially young people are getting it, what it may do them, or anybody that gets it, what it the role it may play, although you mightn't even have symptoms, but what it can bring on in the future and affect your life, such as side effects from getting that bacteria or that germ into your system. Even if you have it and it's not doing you hardly anything, what it can do in the future, it may reduce your lifespan and it could cut your lifespan down and all these kind of things. So it's a very worrisome.
Well, is that part of the challenge? I think people's fearfulness, they're growing afraid, and maybe that is making them a little bit nervous, a sense of uncertainty, greater stress on them, thinking about what may be and how it's going to affect them. Even those who have had to, isolate, perhaps, not sure about what their work situation will be like, their incomes, will they be able to, have sufficient resources to buy the food. I mean, who knows what sort of greater pressures we're putting on people as a result of this whole thing.
Yes, it will be a potential stress, and all kinds of things will be encompassed into it. Unfortunately, there was only one person that had to be medevaced out to Grand Cayman from Cayman Brac that I heard about. The rest seems to be fairly minor cases, but the thing can be a certain person can contract the germ, catch it, that has a very low immunity and damaging, and that one can start to be very bad, a very bad case, and then others catch it. Anyway, we don't hope for something like that, but that's also a possibility. So it's, say, the first thing in the history of Cayman Brac or the Cayman Islands that we have been dealing with some worldwide epidemic that has reached our shores. Millions of travelers, that's how it gets here. And we're dealing with it, but anyway.
But then, is it that when we look at where we are globally, certainly what we're doing locally, and is it South Florida or Miami, or we're told now that the travel ban has been lifted and people are moving in and out. We see their new president fellow, imposing the need for people to get injected before they enter the country and the like. I mean, a lot of things are transpiring, so maybe we'll soon see things become the accepted course of action, and people are moving on in a different way to respond to the different time.
Yes, sir, that's right. And the cruise ships are back many of them are back in service in the Caribbean. Quite regular weekly service. You got the Carnival Horizon that comes to Ocho Rios, Jamaica on a weekly basis, and the MSC Meraviglia that used to come to Grand Cayman, she comes to Jamaica. And Rotan and Belize and all about down there, the cruise ships are going to. So it's around 25 active cruise ships that is back in service. And on Saturday, the world's biggest cruise ship ever was launched at Saint-Nazaire shipyard in France. The world's biggest ever, the wonder of the seas, and that's going to do a Caribbean cruise in March next year. It's coming to Fort Lauderdale on its maiden voyage, and then from there it's going to cruise the Caribbean port.
Well,
yeah. 780, about 100 passengers more than the biggest before that, and it's around 8 feet wider than the Symphony of the Seas. 1,187 feet long, around the same length, but it's wider. This one is wider, which is better for more stability. And that is launched on Saturday, and it will be in Marseille, France, for the outfitting, doing the interior decorating and all that, and getting her ready to come to Fort Lauderdale in March and then do the Caribbean. Like I said, and things are booming in many things, although the COVID is on.
Well, Mr. Raymond, thank you for sharing that, and with the greatest of respect, please allow us to just exit and go to our news time. But we want to wish you a very special happy birthday. The singing or the attempt that song aside, maybe you still have a very festive and celebratory day. Let's pause and take a break, and when we come back, more talk today.
Today's biggest news.
Radio Cayman. Your voice, your choice. Local, regional, international. This is Headlines from Radio Cayman's newsroom.
Today's biggest news.
The Centers for Disease Control is warning Americans away from visiting the Cayman Islands. According to the CDC website, Cayman is now registered as level 4, very high level of COVID-19. The U.S. government agency is telling Americans to avoid all travel to the Cayman Islands, adding that if they must travel to Cayman, they should be fully vaccinated. The CDC travel advisory says because of the current situation in the Cayman Islands, even fully vaccinated travelers may be at risk for getting and spreading COVID-19 variants. Travelers are being urged to follow recommendations or requirements in the Cayman Islands, including wearing a mask and staying 6 feet apart from others. Turning to international news now, efforts leading up to and in climate talks have trimmed a couple tenths of a degree off future warming, but still not near enough to reach any of the international goals, said according to an analysis by an authoritative independent group of scientists. Climate Action Tracker, which for years has monitored nations' emissions-cutting pledges, said based on those submitted targets, the world is now on track to warm 2.4 degrees Celsius, 4.3 degrees Fahrenheit, since pre-industrial times by the end of this century. That's a far cry from the 2015 Paris Climate Deal overarching limit of 1.5 degrees Celsius, or even its fallback limit to 2 degrees Celsius. A U.S. federal judge on Monday ruled United Airlines can impose a COVID-19 vaccine mandate on its employees that only provides unpaid leave for workers who are exempted from medical or religious reasons. A U.S. district judge in Texas rejected arguments by employees that the airline was improperly putting them in an impossible position by forcing them to choose a vaccine or unpaid leave. Judge Mark Pittman was critical of United Airlines' approach toward employees seeking religious exemptions, but said in the end, human resources policy was up to the company and no employee was forced to accept a vaccine. An attorney for the employees did not respond to a request for comment. Those are your latest headlines. I'm Shana Gallego.
For the latest in news and information,
follow Radio Cayman on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Download the Radio Cayman app or log on to our website, radiocayman.gov.ky.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. And it's going to be some open line for the remainder of our show as we go straight to the phones. Hey, welcome. Thanks for calling. All right, how are you?
I'm great.
Okay, we're having a slight challenge here, and you let Miss Susan see if she can work her magic to figure out where we are. And is that better, caller?
Hello?
Yeah, hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Slightly better.
Okay.
Okay.
I promise I won't be long.
No, that's okay. We want you to take as much time as you need so we can hear from you.
With your permission, Dwayne, I would just like to take a minute to just read a word of praise. With your permission, sir. Just a reminder to the Cayman Islands, I'm asking all the prayer warriors to just stand in agreement with me. I'm asking all the government just to remember that God is Lord over the island. Many times He has spared our lives.
Amen.
Even from the last hurricane, it left us and it went somewhere else. Not because it couldn't have, but because God is. And it's just a reminder. And right now, I would just like to take a moment to pray for this island because something serious is about to take place. And there's a scripture that says when the angel of death was passing over, the blood of Jesus Christ makes a difference. And right now, I'm pleading the blood of Jesus Christ over the Cayman Islands. I'm pleading the blood of Jesus Christ in the atmosphere of the Cayman Islands.
Amen.
Aye. God said when He sees the blood, He will pass over. It's nothing good that we have done, Cayman, but because God is graceful, because of His mercy, because of His love, don't forget where we're coming from. Don't forget who has brought us this far, who has brought us this far. It's the power is in your hand not to abuse it, but to use it carefully. And I pray, and I know there are other warriors out there that are praying, and I've been praying many times we come this close. But because of the warriors that are there praying over the island and for the people, you see the elder Caymanians, let me tell you something, they're weeping in their spirit, they're mourning, but their voice is not being heard doing. And let me tell you, I pray, and I plead the blood of Jesus over Grand Cayman, Little Cayman, and Cayman Grand. Because you be blessed. And I pray that the leaders may take heed, repent. God bless you.
God bless you. The power of prayer, and I know those who easily and comfortably do it publicly, but then there are those who remain, sort of offended by public expressions. They seem to be okay with public displays of affection, but never agrees or a prayer. Sometimes, we should do things privately as well. And sometimes, public proclamation is what, is called for. But to that particular perspective, what do you think? We talked about Christmas, being around the corner and how people feel. I always think that one of the saddest country songs is that one about if I want to make it through December. If you listen to that, you understand how it seems like a father, if you can only get through, the challenges of not being able to, maybe buy gifts or pay bills, but sometimes it's no longer the words in the country song about making it through December. Here we are we thankful and concerned whether we'll make it through today? We at a space where, if you look at a few things that have been sort of written in the international media, that starts to ask people to think, just think, act from a position of the concerted thought, logic and reasoning, but to think. When you see parliamentarians in international sort of settings, even in their own local sort of parliaments, asking questions of their party, of their colleagues, of their businesses that operate in their jurisdictions. When questions are raised by physicians and other scientists, how are they perceived? Are they castigated because for some reason they may be saying something that seems to not necessarily, go along with a particular narrative? When people, for instance, would suggest that just because someone is thinking and asking and questioning, that they're somehow, conspiracy theorists. But when people are, openly and knowingly misleading and deceiving, is there any semblance of accountability? Or is it okay, for that deception to be, from this side of the table, because that may be the table of might, not necessarily right, but not, sort of tolerated from the other side? Well, or if what is being said on the other side is just being disparaged. Well, where is that sense of civility? Has avarice taken hold of almost all, or all in power? 8949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. WhatsApp if you wish, 925-3261. And, as you go back to Mr. Raymond's earlier comments, our news headlines has reported something that many of us have already seen and shared relative to the U.S.'s positioning through its disease center. And some would probably call it diseased center. It seems that people are questioning, well, how much does politics come into play when countries are being positioned in a certain way? Well, certainly, travel advisories are always important. They certainly are influential. The question comes back to, how are we reporting and how are we responding? And what are we doing to remain safe? And what impact, if any, are we having on each other and on our communities when we don't, account for each one in a safe, nurturing, caring, loving way? Our earlier discussion at the start of the show, when we think of the impact on our children, what is the world that they inheriting? How safe and secure and nurturing and loving will it be? What will their futures look like? What impact, this whole thing will have on them, their mental well-being, and the financial woes that they may have to face in order to pay for whatever governments, not just talking about here in Cayman or here in the Caribbean, but just globally, governments borrow, leverage, and use in order to respond. Now, will we be judged as being wise or wanton? Will we be looked at as people who are courageous or coward? Well, history, they say, has an interesting way of being, a great teacher. But sometimes even that has been rewritten. 8949-8037, toll free with the compliments of Flow at 1-800-534-8255. It's our final break. Now, I won't ask Miss Susan to sing today, but you never know what she might do tomorrow. You just never know. We got a few minutes left for the program, so dial us up. Let's hear from you. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
You see how hard it's raining?
Yeah, and I don't have time to fight traffic and get my lunch from Subway. I have so much work to do.
Why don't you order Subway by using the Let's Eat or Bento app? Save time, stay dry, and get your sandwich fast.
I never thought of that. Great idea. I'm going to order now.
Order me a veggie pizza while you're at it.
And a cookie platter for the office.
Too busy at work or home? Is the rainy weather stopping you from dining out? Order your favorite Subway sandwich, wrap, or pizza through the Let's Eat or Bento app with fast and reliable delivery. Subway, eat fresh.
For medical lab services in Cayman, go straight to MedLab. Blood test, x-ray, and mammogram, all of that is MedLab. Affordable fees and friendly service, a full professional team. MedLab is always comfortable, MedLab is always clean. for medical lab services in Cayman. MedLab.
Call 949-7331 and ask about MedLab's new state-of-the-art digital mammogram machine.
We may be in Christmas shopping mode, but 'tis the flu season too. Savannah Pharmacy has immune system boosters for the entire family with a range of vitamins and supplements. Their knowledgeable and courteous pharmacists are always available to offer the best advice and products. Remember, they are always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
A friendly holiday reminder. You can WhatsApp your Savannah Pharmacy prescription to 929-5045. That's 929-5045.
The Rotary Central Music Extravaganza 2021 tickets are here. Get your $25 ticket and stand a chance to win the grand prize of $40,000, second prize $4,000, and 6 $1,000 prizes. The Music Extravaganza music event, Saturday, November 27th at Salty's Grand Harbor, featuring CNB, Deja Blue, The Fabulous 68s. Tickets now on sale by Rotary members, authorized ticket sellers, and at eventpro.ky. 26 years of Rotary Music Extravaganza, funding over 70 community projects of significance since 1995. Rotary Central, Cayman Islands. Registered not-for-profit number 232. Rotary Central. Serve to change lives.
If you think you might be infected with COVID-19, take these steps to help prevent other people from getting sick. Stay home except to seek medical care. Call your doctor before visiting. Separate yourself from others who live with you. Wear a mask. Cover your coughs and sneezes with a tissue and clean your hands right away. Schedule a COVID-19 test by visiting hsa.ky. Stay aware of how you feel. If you start to have difficulty breathing or if you're worried about your health, call your doctor. For more tips, visit www.gov.ky/coronavirus.
But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Let's go to the phones. Welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Sterling.
Good afternoon. How are you today?
Great. And how are you?
I'm very blessed, very thankful, and always looking on the positive side of light.
That's right. One thing, the government that we have, where are the representatives? You know, we're all in the pandemic together, from the oldest one to the youngest one.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that don't have WhatsApp or are not able to go online and see what's happening. Where are the people for these briefings that we should be getting at least an update, letting us know what is happening? I mean, it is so many people that we don't know what is going on, and we need to know. You know, we are hearing that this one is have it, that one have it. The hospital cannot see people because it's so, you know, why can't one of these representatives from each district come out and have a briefing at least once a week and let us know what is happening? You know, we're in the island. When it's time for them looking for a vote, when election time, they can knock on your door and they can come and promise you this and promise you that. We need to find out what is going on. This is an island, and I think everyone wants to know and needs to know what is happening. Their hospitals cannot take on everyone. If people are sick, they don't want to go to the hospital because they come back, they might be, you know, with the COVID. You got to take care of those people. The people in your home may not have it, but that you having a chance of taking care of them and catching the COVID from them. What can you tell me? What are the plans? Are they going to do a makeshift hospital or whatever? They had one, and you know we're not really in a busy season yet, as they say. So we need to definitely hear from some of these representatives to know what is going on, because I definitely know that hospital cannot hold a lot more than what I think will have to be in use. So we need to get an answer from some of these representatives. They are there. They are making their money. they are getting paid from the Cayman people, and we need to definitely know what is going on. So I am appealing to them to come on the radio and at least once a week and have a briefing and let the people of the 3 Cayman Islands know what is going on. Thank you, Sterling. Thanks for listening.
I thank you too for sharing. Certainly appreciate it. As a caller reference, knowledge is key. People are informed accurately and timely from a credible source with information that they can use will help. And now, if you want to share a thought, well, the phone lines are open. We certainly want to hear from you as well. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Is it a call there, Miss Susan? We were hoping that was someone bringing us some stew turtle, a little bit of, cornbread even. But something that we were, sort of listening to a few, and again today, in light of international sort of media and reporting, the lady said we're getting ready to open back up, as it were, and then we have, today 11 days, is it away? And increasing reports of cases that, given the testing, I want to be very sensible, but more importantly, very sensitive, so that it doesn't, so much offend people's sensibilities, but certainly doesn't instill a sense of fear or come across as if, you're not being cognizant. But as she shared, she's gotten to a space now where, it's conflicting. There was a time when she wasn't sure of what was what because it changed. And now we're supposed to being told to live with it. And the testing regime has been deployed. And from how she's seen it, well, if we open it up and there were no great signs in the past, all of a sudden now there are significant reported cases, would that make it more attractive for people to come, or would it make it that people might be a little bit more hesitant? And if the cases being tested and reported are from the community, well, what does that say? Again, this is where a sense of, as the caller maybe shared, timely, accurate information from credible sources that are trusted and that are honest, when a sense of understanding and consideration, concern and love can go an incredibly long way, especially when we look at how it affects our health and well-being in every facet, from our school children, to us, to our parents, to every member of our society. Well, a few minutes left in the program, and what is it that you want to share with us? Well, 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. Or you can WhatsApp 925-3261. And as we're seeing more and more of people looking and figuring out, well, where will they be in a year's time? Long ago, that was the norm. Now people are probably just trying to survive from day to day, financially, as well as otherwise. So any words of wisdom and advice that you can offer to the wider community, even to the unsuspecting government who may benefit from a pearl that is just dropped unsolicited. Well, here's a platform if you want to share your wisdom and counsel with us. Hey, good afternoon, welcome. Thanks for calling.
Good afternoon, Sterling Dwayne, and I could make you end the show, just talking by yourself.
No, man, listen. You are a gracious man, and I'm very glad, that you were able to take a second to share with us, man. What appreciate you sharing with us.
Yes, sir. On the COVID note. People are just being complacent here in Cayman.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be honest, it's a very serious, situation. And it's just fortunate at the moment that there you say no deaths.
Mm-hmm.
But that is interesting.
Right.
To me.
If I can ask, though, statistics that have been shared publicly indicate that given the revised population estimate and the number of administered injections, that we're like 80%, right? And people in the community allegedly have been now vaccinated with both, and have recently, amongst the thousands that have been reported of the positive cases, tested positive, even those who have been vaccinated with the 2 shots. Now, I never say how many were or not, because I don't know if I saw that statistic, but my question is, if they've been given the vaccination and they're still testing positive, whether they have flu-like symptoms or no symptoms at all, or they, sadly feeling really, really horrible, how do we move forward? What do we do?
Sterling, we can move forward, but we're moving forward, you would say, willy-nilly.
Okay.
Nobody is really paying it too much of any mind in that. And many people are still talking to one another without mask on, still touching one another, and how is it spread?
How is it spread? I mean, we're told that it doesn't live on hard surfaces and the like.
For a long time,
right. We're told that the mask that we wear, yes, it'll probably contain a bad breath and maybe help us not to smell the noxious fumes, but the virus can still pass through those masks.
Yes, it can still pass through those masks, but the chances are a lot less. Because if you have on a mask, you're protecting me. If I have on a mask, I'm protecting you. And if both of us have masks, we're protecting each
other. But hang on, and I want to be careful again, because this is not, not trying to inflame anything, but if you listen to people who seem supposed to know what they're talking about, and they're saying, well, the regular mask that we're wearing has only given us a false sense of comfort, that it does not stop the virus, because the particles in it are so small from coming out of your mouth and going into the air as it passes through the mask.
That may be so, Dwayne. But if you take sand, for example, you've got different sized particles in the sand. Strain it with cloth. It could be milky before it go through that cloth, and strain it gets lighter and lighter.
It still catch some.
It gonna catch some. Correct.
Right. Okay.
That is what I'm getting at.
No, and I gather that it's like sneezing, right? You have I used to sneeze into a tissue, or you sneeze into long before, you were taught that before it became the public norm. So many of us could do a better job at personal hygiene. Some of us wash our hands so much that people say, oh, you're obsessive compulsive, or you have some phobia or germaphobe or whatever, right? But more of us could wash our hands a lot more, and sanitize our surfaces and the like. But again, it comes down to not just that level of personal responsibility, but to what extent what we're seeing before us is actually as bad as it seems. What if it's worse? I mean, who knows, right?
It's worse than we've seen it, to be quite honest. Because, when you look at it, you got nearly 1/10 of those that are, you would say, tested positive in the hospital right now, You have almost 1/10. It dropped a bit because we now have over 2,000, but a few days ago it was just over 1,000, and we had 10 or 12 people in there. We had of the populace that was tested positive, and I'm sure that probably, I would go for an argument, say that 60% of those that were in the hospital were vaccinated. But remember now, we have still estimated 20% that are not. Those people will, at one point or some point in time, because of the rapid, you would say, flow that we're having here with the spreading of it, will soon, you would say, get the virus, and who knows what it is going to do to those individuals. I will risk that because of a greenback.
Well, you know, there's
because they opening up part of it, some part of it has changed again. They say that kids now, you would say that are able to take at least one dose can come in. I mean, they made a change, you would say, so quick. What's going to happen tomorrow? Another change made to say, oh, families can come in with their kids that are unvaccinated. Come on. It's gonna happen eventually that it's going to be a free-for-all again.
Well, you know, it is like a lot of things, you know, a sense of personal responsibility. There's also a sense that we don't necessarily become paralyzed by fear. We don't start to not only fearmonger, but we don't become foolish and disbelieve, you know, what is obvious. But I wonder, you know, how much of what is relayed from anyone in any position is really credible anymore. Any final thoughts, my friend?
No, I see the time, so I'm going to let you go right there.
Yeah, man. No, but thank you for closing me out and you know, being the last caller and inviting us to a sense of personal responsibility, man. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too, dear.
All right. I'm going to pause, take the break, call it a day for today. Invite you to come back tomorrow for the record with Mr. Art. Again, thanks to him for hosting. You know, just a heads up, next Monday I'm going to be off, okay? Just so you know. Yeah, Monday's Remembrance Day. So just let you know. Want you to think about that as you celebrate. Remind, you know, yourselves and each other of that importance of championing, supporting, and celebrating our democracy. All right. Tomorrow's another day. Pray to God that we'll be a part of it in a very productive way. I know many are feeling, you know, still very, very, you know, hurt and sad, you know, as they mourn the loss of loved ones. We are with you in prayer. And as the lady who called, you know, asking if you believe in it as a prayer warrior, to pray for leadership, that you have humility and counsel and wisdom. Pray for us all for provision and protection. May God's merciful hand guide us. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Talk Today is brought to you by Subway, open 24 hours in Countryside, Anderson Square in Georgetown, and Centennial Towers in West Bay. And by the Ministry of District Administration, Tourism and Transport. Explore your history, explore your land, explore your sister islands. MedLab in Smith Road Plaza, your complete medical laboratory solution. Call 949-7331. And Savannah Pharmacy in Countryside Shopping Village, convenient opening hours including Sundays and holidays.